You're listening to EFT Radio Online, where we explore meridian tapping techniques for self-help and peak performance. By listening to this audio, you agree to the disclaimer located at eftradioonline.com/disclaimer. If you'd like to get the schedule of all the upcoming EFT radio shows and access to archive shows, please visit us at eftradioonline.com, where you can subscribe to our free newsletter.
Are you a fellow peace seeker who is ready to shine? How would it feel to take back your personal power and be calm and centered in any situation? Join empowerment coach Stephenie Farrell for Live Your Best Life, where we'll harness the power of the law of attraction and the art of creating affirmations. Get ready to say yes to your best life.
Welcome, fellow peace seekers. I've got a real treat for you today, so stay tuned. You'll be listening to a conversation I had with someone you know and love, internationally acclaimed spiritual author and lecturer, writer of the mega bestseller A Return to Love, Marianne Williamson. I was fortunate to speak with Marianne a few days ago about her new book, Tears to Triumph, The Spiritual Journey from Suffering to Enlightenment. I hope you enjoy this special interview with Marianne, and that her new book, Tears to Triumph, will touch you as deeply as it has me. Namaste. Welcome, Marianne. I'm thrilled to have you on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be here.
Your new book, Tears to Triumph, really spoke to me at a deep level. And it's available now for pre-order on Amazon.com, folks. And I really encourage everyone to get a copy for themselves, their friends, and family members, because I just know it's going to help so many people.
Thank you so much for saying that. It makes me very happy to hear that the book touched you. Thank you.
Marianne, why did you feel it was important now to write a book on suffering? What's the cost of ignoring this problem?
Well, two things came together. One was going through an experience of depression in my own life over something, but also juxtaposing that with the way such periods of life are commonly treated today. We have bought into a medical model for human despair. We are now medicalizing normal human suffering. There are serious mental disorders like schizophrenia and seriously diagnosed bipolar, cases where I think most of us do agree that psychotherapeutic drugs can be even life-saving. But what's happened now is that antidepressants are being thrown at things which are part of the spectrum of normal human suffering. For instance, a bitter divorce. This is very painful, but it's not a mental disorder. Grief over the loss of a loved one who has passed is very painful, but it's not a mental disorder. Financial hardship, ruin, bankruptcy, these things are very painful, but they're not mental disorders. So medicalizing them is something that we should take far more seriously. And today, when you look at the statistics, how many people are on antidepressants, this is very disturbing, particularly considering the fact that according to the FDA, for people 25 years old and younger, antidepressants increase, not decrease, suicidal ideation. And people are taking them like candy now. People go into their general, practitioner and says, "How you doing?" Says, "Well, I've been having a tough time recently," and a prescription is shoved in their hand. And we've all been given this story, and the story is that depression is different than deep sadness, that it's a mental condition, a very serious mental condition involving a change in brain chemistry. Well, first of all, I haven't met anyone who was given antidepressants who first had their brain chemistry checked. And as far as a change in brain chemistry is concerned, meditation changes brain chemistry. Meditation changes neurocircuitry and neurotransmitters. So I have looked at people go through the dark night of the soul, which is what spiritually this is called. This is nothing new. Heartbreak didn't just start. Human suffering and catastrophe didn't just start. And I've watched how people, the musculature with which you navigate these times of sadness has begun to shrivel in so many people who see these times of deep sorrow, and even the happiest life has times of deep sadness. These are the seasons of life. People don't know how to navigate these times anymore. They think of it as a problem that has to be fixed, particularly medically. And this turns us into victims. This turns us into people thinking something's wrong with us. When in fact, if you're very sad over something sad that has happened, there is nothing wrong with you. This is a season of life. And every dark night is followed by a morning. Now, if you look at the great religious and spiritual traditions, Buddha saw suffering for the first time. That was the beginning of his journey to enlightenment. Moses was sent to rescue the Israelites when they were suffering as slaves under Pharaoh, led them through the time in the desert when they were suffering on their way to the promised land. And of course, Jesus' suffering on the cross is what then led to the resurrection. So the great spiritual traditions speak right to the issue of human suffering as a spiritual dis-ease. So what's happening today is that people like myself, too often people say, don't weigh in on this, you're not a doctor. And I'm like, whoa, I'm challenging the assertion that this is a medical issue. It's not like I shouldn't be in their lane. What are they doing in our lane? Because when it comes to emotional, psychological, and spiritual suffering, this is an issue of the human heart and human emotions and it's a spiritual issue. And I just feel that given how many people are on meds today, and how many people, when you ask them why they're on meds, point to conditions and situations that are part of the normal spectrum of human suffering, I felt, and particularly having worked with as many people in my career who have been through catastrophic situations, everything from people who've been diagnosed with AIDS to people whose children have been murdered. I mean, in my course of my career, I've borne witness to much agony, and I've lived my own life, where there's been a couple of profoundly disappointing junctures in my life, and I've lost both parents, I've lost a sister, I've lost a best friend, and I just had a few things I wanted to say, so I put them in a book.
And I would like to actually read a quote from the book, because it made me really think about the collective change we need to have happen in the world.
Yes.
And you say, since the thought system that dominates the world is one that repudiates love, it is a prison in which we are bound to suffer. The only way to escape our suffering is to rise above the thought system that creates it. So my question, Marianne, is what can we do as individuals about the collective suffering that's going on in the world now? Is it enough for us to start with ourselves and to do that deep inner work, or do you believe that will make a difference?
Well, as you know, in the book, I do talk about the fact that a lot of our despair is collective. The model of psychotherapy that now prevails is one that focuses on the individual sufferer, and sometimes a focus on the individual sufferer at the expense of a focus on the larger malaise that exists within the society obscures the cause of our suffering. For instance, if a young person comes in and they're really depressed because they don't know how they're going to get a job, they don't know how to pay back their college loans, if maybe they should drop out of school, there's a bigger issue here than just the suffering of that young person. The bigger issue is that our society is making it so difficult financially for kids to get a higher education and so forth. So there are so many problems involved with numbing our pain. There are so many problems involved with distracting ourselves from our pain, because it is in feeling our pain, first of all, that we learn from it. And second of all, that we become motivated to actually changing the conditions that cause it. And so sometimes those conditions are within ourselves. We have to look at our own issues, atone for our own mistakes, forgive other people for theirs, learn from the experience after, let's say, a broken marriage or a broken love affair, that we will go forward with greater skill at relationships, greater appreciation for love, a deeper sense of responsibility to relationship. Sometimes we have to burn through the pain of knowing that we ourselves made mistakes, professionally or personally, and committing to changing and making amends. Sometimes we have to do the deep work of forgiving other people. And sometimes we have to do the deep work of knowing that our country must change or our world must change, and become motivated to be part and, participatory in making the changes that need to happen. Either way you look at it, whether it's an individual issue or a collective issue, this is not the time on the planet to be numb. Everybody wants to be on this emotional flat line right now, like, oh, no drama. How can you say no drama when they're fighting in Fallujah today? And they're fighting in Fallujah with 20,000 children stuck in there, and ISIL using, human beings as shields, human shields. All of that happened because we invaded a country, but we're supposed to be no drama. No, there's plenty of drama. And maybe you are suppressing it within yourself, but it is being played out somewhere, and it will come around to get you. So, it reminds me, the image I use in the book is the canaries in a mine that are dropping dead, because, they're telling you there's toxicity in the mine, and what we're doing is we're saying there's something wrong with the canaries. The fact that so many people are upset today means something. Psychic pain carries a message, just like physical pain does. And if you have a broken leg, you don't just take morphine. You have to reset the leg. And we have to reset the thinking that causes so much suffering.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, go on. Yeah, please go on.
Often people, I find they want a quick fix, and a lot of people say they've tried meditation, they've tried prayer and forgiveness, but then they say it didn't work for me.
Yeah, right.
So I don't think
what do you
people,
even say?
Yeah, I don't think they realize that sometimes it takes a lot of time and effort to heal.
Well, also, yes, it's a journey, and there's a lot of sharecraftic spirituality out there. I spent a week gazing at a candle, and I call that a serious meditation practice. Serious practice of meditation and a serious practice of forgiveness is a journey. That's symbolized by the 40 years between the Israelites in Egypt and the Israelites' deliverance of the Promised Land. It's the 3 days between the crucifixion and the resurrection. And during that time, you cry. The fact that you're crying during that time does not mean it's not working. Sometimes you're crying because it's painful. It's like the humanity would not have evolved over thousands and thousands and thousands of years without being imbued with the capacity to take a hit. This is true physically, but it's also true emotionally and psychologically. When we are injured or when we have a disease, the body has an immune system, and to a large extent, it knows how to integrate injury or disease and heal from it. Well, the psyche is the same. But in some situations, it's like you've been through a divorce and you say, I feel like I've been beaten up. Well, emotionally you are. And if you're beaten up and you're bruised physically, it's going to take some time. I don't care what medicine you take, you're going to have to be gentle with your body while your body is healing. And that's what grief is. That's what emotional healing is. And part of that healing has to do with being gentle with ourselves, meditating, praying, doing the real work of deep reflection, deep understanding, self-awareness, so that you come out on the other end of it a better person. That we talk about you can be bitter or you can be better. Nietzsche said life is suffering, and to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. Wisdom. We're a society that doesn't value the search for wisdom. We trivialize it as though it's not functional. But what could be more functional than to tend to your broken heart and to learn the lessons that broken heart teaches you, so that you go forward from a different place and you grow stronger and you don't create so many messed up situations in your life, and you become stronger when and if they do arrive. What could be more functional than that?
I really appreciate the good times in my life and the people now, because I have gone through so many dark times myself, and
I feel the same way that you do. Yeah, it makes you appreciate the good times. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Absolutely, and the people in your life. At one point in my life, I was in an abusive relationship, and of course, I built my sense of self around this person, around the relationship. So when he decided to leave, I felt abandoned. And I didn't know how to process my feelings. I just didn't have the tools then. But when I could finally accept what happened, I felt this loving presence around me, and my heart just poured out love. And I think it was at that point I realized I was more than my suffering. I was more than my body or my thoughts. And I really believe I was guided by that presence to work in a way that could help others. And I know, Marianne, in your book you talk about an experience that's sort of similar, actually.
Very much what you were just saying. And It's a common archetype. It's a common archetype. You have an ability to understand other people's suffering, to be present for other people's suffering, to have empathy for other people's suffering because you suffered. Mm-hmm. And that right there makes it something that has been part of the divine alchemy by which God turns darkness into light. It's not some cold clinical experience that you just take a pill for. It's a sacred journey. It's a holy crucible into the deepening of our true selves. And like you said, now I bet you know how to be grateful and appreciative of a relationship that's not abusive. You have enough friends or family members who die, you become viscerally clear that this is a short ride, and suck the juice of life out of life while it's happening. Because when you're young and you haven't experienced anything, you take stuff for granted. Although it's the young people that I'm most concerned about with this over-medication issue, because the FDA has warned that for people 25 and younger, antidepressants increase, not decrease, suicidal ideation. And this is particularly concerning to me because the 20s are hard. And the idea that everybody in their 20s, so many people in their 20s, they're going through the normal 20 stuff, it's awful. But going through that and having pills slapped at them and told that that there's something wrong with them, but we make marijuana illegal, which is, the whole thing is just so insane, really, if you think about it. It truly is insane.
Absolutely. And even the people that I see that I love in my life right now, I see them stuck. They're stuck in this pattern of sabotage, and they consistently make bad choices, and they're suffering as a consequence each time. And I know I can't force them to change their thinking or to do the work they might need to do. And how can we help these people? What can we really do to encourage them?
I wrote a book. That might help a little. I mean, if someone is looking for a serious spiritual path, it's more than available today. And of course, I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and in my book I talk about Buddha's response to suffering, the response to suffering within the story of the Exodus of the Israelites. I talk about the answer to suffering, which is the transmission of Christ. So I've certainly tried my best with this book to talk about and to enunciate a spiritual response to the issue of human suffering, which is at the core of all the great religious traditions.
So many tools you provide us there, Marianne. It's wonderful. And in Tears to Triumph, you also talk about forgiveness as being the most essential key to happiness. And you say that suffering remains until we forgive. When I work with people, they find it more difficult sometimes to forgive themselves. Right. And I know in my own life, I forgave other people, and then the hardest part was really to forgive myself. And can you explain why this self-forgiveness might be more hard to reach?
Well, it's very difficult because you're embarrassed and you're humiliated and you feel that you yourself ruined the marriage, or you yourself messed up the job, or you yourself lost the money, or you yourself. So, of course, the self-flagellation is tremendous. The ego mind is the part of us that both sets us up to do the wrong thing and then punishes us savagely for having done so. Now, in all the great religious and spiritual systems of the world, God has a response to this, and it's called the atonement principle. In Catholicism, this is demonstrated by the practice of confession. In Judaism, Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement, is the holiest day of the year. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, the taking of a fearless moral inventory, admitting the exact nature of your wrongs. This is extremely important because we're living at a time where you might be surrounded by people who say, "Oh, don't be down on yourself. You couldn't have made a mistake." Yes, you could have. And grown-ups own our mistakes. And the atonement means a kind of cosmic reset button. I admit that I did it wrong, and I have prayers for this in the book, where you actually atone for your errors. And forgiveness is where you let the love flow because you acknowledge the innocence in yourself and others that simply wasn't downloaded in a certain situation. You or another person got to a moment where, because of a trigger, usually from childhood wounding, we didn't know how to express our love and get our needs met. And so we swerved from our love. But the love that is the essence of who we are was not uncreated in that moment. And it is held in trust for us. And when we are willing to atone for our own mistakes and forgive other people, seek to be willing to see the innocence in others despite their mistakes, and to focus on what people have done right, as opposed to the part of the mind that just wants to always focus on somebody else's mistakes, wants to focus on their guilt. We can train our attitudinal muscles to focus on the innocence in ourselves and others. And that power, that free flow of love literally works miracles. And it invites the mercy of the universe. It invites new beginnings. It invites new possibilities, a rearrangement of circumstances and human energies. It makes all the difference in the world. It heals relationships, and it changes who we are going forward. And I, of course, explain all that in the book.
I wanted to ask you, what really is your greatest wish for the book?
Well, when you're a writer, you're by yourself, and you hope that there is an aha, that somebody will have, that something that you write will make somebody go, yes! As a writer, I've had the experience that any writer really delights in when somebody shows you their book. It's got all these yellow lines and pink lines and all the stars next to it and underlining. This book particularly, because it speaks to the sorrowful heart, because it speaks to that place that we all go into sometimes. Even the happiest life has sad days. I like to think that if there is someone out there who is either going through a sorrowful time or needs to understand their own sorrow more, I hope this book finds its way into their hands. And I hope that this book says something that makes really all of us appreciate more deeply the power of those dark nights of the soul and the meaning of those dark nights of the soul and the gift and the treasures that are there when they cannot be avoided. But most particularly for that person who is suffering at the time the book is put in their hands, really, I pray that it's of comfort to someone who is in pain.
Oh, Marianne, I know it's going to help so many people. I really do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So it's been wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it very, very much.
I just want to say, Marianne, you're live in New York City every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern Time.
Yes, and free live streaming so people can watch it from anywhere in the world, and the link stays available for 3 days. And people can go to Marianne.com and find out all of it.
June 13th, Marianne, you'll be live in Los Angeles for the worldwide launch of your new book, Tears to Triumph, at the Sabin Theater at 7:30.
Yes.
Wonderful. And folks, the book is now available for pre-order, so I really, really urge you to go out and get a copy for yourself, for your family, for your friends, because I know it's going to make all the difference in your lives. Thank you again, Marianne. It was so wonderful talking to you today.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it, and I wish you the very best in all your work.
Thank you.
God bless.
Hi, this is Coach Stephenie Farrell. I understand what it's like to struggle with fear, anxiety, and frustration. I've fallen on my face more times than you care to count. But what I've learned is this: the only way to change your life is to change how you feel. I totally get how overwhelming it is to take that first step. You don't have to do this alone. Email me at Stephenie, that's STEPHENIE, at purpose-power-peace.com and claim your complimentary Breakthrough to Self-Empowerment session, where we'll create a personalized strategy for living your best life.